This is Tales from the Cube, a podcast about call centers, what it's like to work in them, the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny and not so funny side of what it's like working in a call center. Hello and welcome to another edition of Tales from the Cube. This will be episode 24004, and today the topic is how to avoid awkward conversations in a call center setting. Working in a call center can be difficult, but there are ways to handle the situation with kindness and professionalism. This can help you avoid having difficult conversations with colleagues and with HR. It's important to maintain a positive and respectful attitude towards your colleagues and leadership team. By treating others with kindness and understanding, you can help create a more harmonious work environment. That's pretty important. So let's dive into this. Additionally, you want to stay clear of controversial topics or personal questions that could potentially lead to awkward conversations. Stick to work related discussions and focus on the task at hand to avoid an uncomfortable situation or uncomfortable moments. Okay, you want to do this. What is done in Vegas stays in Vegas. In other words, what you do out of work should generally not be discussed at work. There are family friendly topics to discuss during lunch and breaks, but some things just are better left unsaid. What am I talking about here? Well, generally speaking, what I'm speaking about is talking about really personal things like your financial situation or your home life situation. Now, there are certain times you might want to get help from a colleague to, bridge maybe to HR or wherever. But generally speaking, keeping that out of a tabletop conversation is important. If you also have a difficult relationship with somebody at work and you've even had interactions with them outside of work, you want to keep that off the tabletop conversations. These are important things to do because the bottom line is that in certain circumstances, people don't necessarily have a good filter and they'll talk about things. Before you know it, conversations might happen between them and their friends online, and it may end up getting viewed by HR. What will happen is you will get into a situation where you're having to explain what happened because a report was drawn up. And it's not a good situation to be in. It's something that you will have to explain. And if you did what they alleged, you're going to be facing some very serious questions. And even if it's outside of work, you still may get something coming your way in the form of a job action. So be aware of that. That's the reason why you want to keep family-friendly topics on the table. Every now and then, it's okay to say, "Well, yeah, things are a little rough, but we're making it work best." But going into details about things that are really super personal about yourself, keep that out of the workplace. Keep that off the tabletop conversations. Being the joker of the team is fine, but there are definitely limits. Furthermore, while it is a good idea to be friendly and on terms that are very good with your boss, you need to remember that they are not your pal. They are your boss. This can be difficult to handle for the older versus younger worker colleague situations where the boss is almost like a kid based on the age. However, you must respect their authority and adhere to their requests. Now, one thing I'm going to say to bosses who are younger, who have their workers on their team that are older, you might want to listen to your older workers because those people bring to the table knowledge and experience. It's important that you respect that as well. So, an equal relationship is really, really key to your success as a boss. And also in a call center environment, you want to remember that you have a whole range of people that you're working with as a leader. So treat these people, particularly older people, as people with knowledge. Yes, you still may have to do those things that are really tough, like reprimand them or coach them on things that are really difficult to talk about. But show kindness and respect to them. Remember that their experience matters, and that's the key thing. But as a older person with a boss who is younger, remember that they are the boss. You should adhere to their orders and respect to them as a person. Don't try to basically overstep your boundaries here. Remember that that can get you into a situation again where you're having a conversation with HR. So in other words, it's about respect, mutual teamwork and cooperation. Really, really important to do that. Remembering that in every situation, you're going to basically want to check yourself before you end up in a situation that's not so good. Furthermore, you're not at the club. Yeah, believe it or not, that's important to remember. So you are at work dressed for the job. Do do remember this. It's an important thing. And remember, booty calls can lead to conversations with HR. And as for your political, religious, and social views, do yourself a favor and leave these at the door. Just leave that at the door. I understand advocacy is important. We want to have good um, environments in workplaces for people who are uh, working, who are, say, gay, or lesbian, or our gender identity differently from what we are. So there are women who identify as men and men identify as women, and we want to show kindness and respect to those people. But advocacy on the production floor is not something you really want to get into. It's really something I would say to avoid as best as possible. Advocacy should be through the proper channels, through feedback, through the company channels that you have before you, not on the production floor. It's not a time for Norma Jean. Really, in all honesty, this is not something you want to do because it's going to basically get you into a conversation with somebody, and that's going to be awkward, and it may also lead to conversations with HR. So let me rephrase this again. Furthermore, you are not at the club, you are at work just for the job. And remember that booty calls can lead to conversations with HR, and your political and religious views should be left outside the door. It's really, really important. So I can't stress this enough. This is an important thing that you really want to stay away from because the bottom line is it's going to hurt you in the end if you play Norma Jean on the floor. Just for background history, Norma Jean was an advocate back in the early 20th century who um, helped basically the union cause, and she was very strong in that venture. She was successful in a lot of ways, but also created a lot of difficulty for herself too. It was not an easy road, but at the end of the day, she got what she needed to do. Advocacy is important. We want to respect people and their identities and their religious beliefs, and all that is important. But there's a place, a time, and a channel to use that particular uh, advocacy, and the production floor isn't it. One thing also you want to remember that one thing you also want to remember is that if you do find yourself in a situation where a conversation is becoming awkward, try to change the subject gracefully and politely excuse yourself from the conversation. Remember, it's okay to set boundaries and prioritize your comfort in these situations. It's okay to say no. I'm not going to discuss this. This is not a topic I'm willing to go for. So I'm not here to talk about that. Keep the tabletop clear of those really, really heavy duty stuff situations. So, how does all this relate to call centers? The answer is simple. Most production floors are open spaces. The cubicle still exists, but not in the larger extent that it once did. So, you are going to be more exposed to others around you, which means you will have more of a connection to colleagues. And let's be honest, there are a lot of, shall we say, eccentric people who work in the call centers. I know this from my 20 years in the business. So one needs to be cautious about what they do, how they look, and what they say. Yeah, it's important. What you say, what you do, how you look is going to be perceived by people in different ways. And you want to be careful because of the open concept spaces a lot of call centers have right now gone to. Like I said, cubicle is not as big as a thing. So it is important to respect the space. I've seen some wonderful people. I've seen some very interesting people. And I'll be honest, I've seen some strange behavior. And I just, whoa, it's all you can do. And you're going to see that in the call center. It's a thing, and it's a reality. It just is what it is, and so you have to basically uh, tackle this with a little bit of smarts here with regard to this. So dress for the success that you want in your job. Remember, what you say does have impact, and what you do definitely is going to have impact. So by following these tips and maintaining a professional demeanor, you can help avoid awkward conversations with fellow employees and HR, and that's something that you want to do in a call center setting. You want to avoid that. I want to thank you very much for dropping in and listening to Tales from the Cube, or seeing our YouTube channel, which is now up as well. My name again is Cliff. Thank you very much for viewing and also listening to this episode. I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Tales from the Cube. My name is Cliff Turner. You can hear us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Audible. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate it. We'll see you in the next episode of Tales from the Cube.